Walking through any grocery store, bananas sit prominently in their cheerful yellow bunches, often priced as one of the most affordable fruits available. They are convenient, naturally packaged, and widely considered a healthy snack for families. What most shoppers don't realize is that the journey these bananas took to reach that produce section involved exposure to numerous chemical treatments, some of which remain on or within the fruit long after harvest. Understanding what happens to bananas from plantation to store shelf reveals concerns that deserve closer attention, especially for households with young children or elderly family members. The banana industry operates on a massive global scale, with most fruit consumed in North America and Europe traveling thousands of miles from tropical growing regions. And this distance creates logistical challenges that producers address through chemical interventions at nearly every stage. These treatments aren't secrets within the agricultural industry, but they rarely make it into mainstream consumer awareness. The chemicals used serve practical purposes like preventing spoilage, controlling pests, and ensuring bananas arrive at their destination with the bright yellow appearance shoppers expect. However, the residues left behind present questions about long-term health impacts that researchers continue to investigate. Conventional banana cultivation relies heavily on pesticide applications throughout the growing cycle. Banana plants face threats from various insects, nematodes, and fungal diseases that can devastate entire plantations if left unchecked. Cited among the most concerning chemicals used are organophosphates and carbamates, both classes of insecticides known for their effectiveness against pests, but also for their potential neurotoxic effects in humans. These compounds work by disrupting the nervous systems of insects, but research shows they can interfere with human nerve function as well, particularly with repeated or high-level exposure. Fungicides represent another major category of chemicals applied to banana crops. The most notorious example is chlorothalonil, a broad-spectrum fungicide that has been used extensively in banana production despite being classified as a probable human carcinogen by various health agencies. This chemical helps prevent fungal diseases like sigatoka, which can destroy banana leaves and reduce crop yields. Workers who apply these fungicides face the highest exposure risks, but residues can persist on the fruit itself, especially in the peel and potentially migrating into the flesh over time. Beyond individual pesticides, many banana plantations use systemic treatments where chemicals are absorbed into the plant's vascular system. These systemic pesticides circulate through the entire plant, including the developing fruit. Unlike surface treatments that might be washed away by rain or rinsing, systemic chemicals become part of the plant tissue itself. This means they can't be removed by conventional washing or even peeling in some cases. The rationale for using systemic treatments is their longer-lasting protection and reduced need for repeated applications. But the trade-off is a deeper penetration of chemical residues into the edible portions. The harvesting process marks a transition from field chemicals to post-harvest treatments. Bananas are typically cut while still green and hard, nowhere near ready to eat. This premature harvesting is necessary because fully ripened bananas wouldn't survive the long journey to distant markets. Once cut, the fruit undergoes several processing steps before being loaded onto ships or trucks. Washing stations may use chlorinated water or other antimicrobial solutions to reduce surface bacteria and fungal spores. While this reduces disease transmission, it also introduces chlorine compounds and their byproducts, some of which have been linked to respiratory irritation and other health concerns with chronic exposure. After washing, bananas receive crown-cut treatments, where fungicides are applied directly to the cut stem ends to prevent rot from spreading into the fruit. A common chemical for this purpose is thiabendazole, a fungicide that has been detected in various fruit samples at levels that sometimes exceed regulatory limits in certain countries. Thiabendazole can cause liver and thyroid problems in animal studies, raising questions about its safety for human consumption, particularly for people who eat bananas daily. The transportation phase introduces perhaps the most controversial chemical treatment, fumigation with ethylene oxide or similar gases. Ethylene oxide is a potent fumigant used to sterilize bananas and eliminate any insects, eggs, or pathogens that might have survived earlier treatments. This gas is highly effective at its intended purpose, but it's also classified as a known human carcinogen by multiple international health organizations. Exposure to ethylene oxide has been linked to increased risks of lymphoid cancers and breast cancer in occupational settings where workers face regular contact with the gas. Some importers have shifted toward using methyl bromide as a fumigant alternative, but this substitution comes with its own problems. Methyl bromide is an ozone-depleting substance that many countries have restricted or banned under international environmental agreements. Beyond environmental damage, methyl bromide can cause neurological damage, respiratory problems, and reproductive harm in humans exposed to significant concentrations. While regulatory agencies set limits on residue levels allowed in food, and these limits are based on assumptions about average consumption and don't always account for vulnerable populations who might be more susceptible to harm. During overseas shipping, bananas spend weeks in refrigerated containers maintained at specific temperatures to slow ripening. These containers are often treated with additional antimicrobial agents to prevent mold growth in the humid, enclosed environment. The combination of cold storage and chemical treatments keeps the fruit in a suspended state of development, but it also means the bananas are sitting in close contact with these substances for extended periods. Some chemicals can penetrate deeper into the peel and potentially reach the fruit flesh during this prolonged exposure. Upon arrival at distribution centers, bananas enter ripening rooms where they're exposed to ethylene gas, a natural plant hormone that triggers the ripening process. While ethylene itself is not toxic, the gas used in commercial ripening may be mixed with other compounds or applied in ways that aren't disclosed to consumers. Some facilities use catalytic generators that can produce trace amounts of other gases as byproducts. The controlled ripening process transforms the green, starchy fruit into the sweet, yellow bananas consumers recognize, but it's yet another step involving chemical exposure. The peel of a banana is often considered a protective barrier that shields the edible fruit inside from external contaminants. This assumption provides false comfort to many consumers who believe that as long as they're not eating the peel, they're safe from any chemicals applied to the outside. Research tells a different story. Studies have documented the migration of pesticides and other chemicals from the peel into the fruit flesh, particularly with lipophilic compounds that can move through the waxy cuticle and cell walls. The extent of this migration depends on various factors, including the specific chemical properties, storage time, temperature, and the fruit's ripeness. Children face heightened risks from chemical residues in food for several biological reasons. Their bodies are still developing, with rapid cell division occurring in their brains, nervous systems, and other organs. This growth phase makes them more vulnerable to disruption from neurotoxic pesticides or hormone-disrupting compounds. Additionally, children consume more food relative to their body weight compared to adults, meaning they may have proportionally higher exposure to any contaminants present in their diet. A toddler who eats a banana every day could be receiving doses of certain chemicals that approach or exceed safety thresholds when adjusted for their smaller body size. The blood-brain barrier in young children is also less fully developed than in adults, potentially allowing greater penetration of certain chemicals into brain tissue. Given that several pesticide classes used on bananas are known neurotoxins, this creates specific concerns about impacts on cognitive development, behavior, and learning. Some epidemiological studies have found associations between prenatal or early childhood pesticide exposure and attention problems, lower IQ scores, and developmental delays, though establishing direct causation remains challenging due to the many variables involved in human health outcomes. Elderly individuals represent another vulnerable group when it comes to chemical exposures from food. Aging bodies often have reduced capacity to metabolize and eliminate toxins, meaning chemicals can accumulate to higher levels or persist longer in their systems. Liver and kidney function typically decline with age, and these organs play crucial roles in processing and excreting foreign substances. An older person eating the same amount of pesticide-contaminated fruit as a younger adult might retain those compounds longer and experience greater effects. Furthermore, many elderly people take multiple medications for chronic health conditions, so creating potential for drug-chemical interactions. Some pesticides can interfere with the metabolism of common medications or exacerbate side effects. For instance, organophosphate pesticides can interact with certain blood pressure medications, diabetes drugs, and other pharmaceuticals in ways that aren't fully understood or documented. This polypharmacy situation, common among older adults, adds layers of complexity to assessing the real-world health impacts of dietary chemical exposures. Immune function also tends to decline with age, potentially reducing the body's ability to repair damage caused by toxic exposures. Oxidative stress from pesticide metabolism can contribute to inflammation and cellular damage, processes already elevated in aging bodies. While regulatory safety assessments typically use adult male animal models, they may not adequately protect populations with compromised detoxification systems or heightened susceptibility. The question of safe exposure levels remains contentious within toxicology and regulatory science. Government agencies establish tolerance limits or maximum residue levels for pesticides in food based on toxicological studies, usually conducted in laboratory animals. These studies attempt to identify doses that produce no observable adverse effects, then apply safety factors to account for uncertainties and differences between species. The resulting tolerances are supposed to protect the general population, including sensitive subgroups, with adequate margins of safety. Critics of this approach point out several limitations. First, testing typically examines one chemical at a time, but real-world exposure involves mixtures of many compounds. Bananas might carry residues from multiple pesticides, fungicides, and processing chemicals simultaneously. These mixtures can interact in ways that enhance toxicity beyond what each chemical would cause alone, a phenomenon called synergistic effects. Current regulatory frameworks don't adequately account for these mixture effects, potentially underestimating true health risks. Second, most toxicology studies look for acute or short-term effects like death, obvious illness, or organ damage. They're less equipped to detect subtle changes that might only manifest after years or decades of exposure, such as gradual neurological decline, hormone disruption affecting fertility or development, or incremental increases in cancer risk. Low-level chronic exposures that don't cause immediate symptoms might still contribute to disease over a lifetime, but these effects are difficult to study and even harder to attribute definitively to any single exposure source. Third, individual variation means that population-wide safety standards may not protect everyone equally. Genetic differences affect how efficiently people break down and eliminate various chemicals. Some individuals carry genetic variants that make them slow metabolizers of certain pesticides, meaning standard exposure levels could be more hazardous for them. Babies, children, pregnant women, the elderly, and people with certain health conditions may all fall outside the average population used to set safety standards. Testing of imported bananas has revealed a concerning pattern of detectable pesticide residues. Various monitoring programs conducted by government agencies and independent researchers have found that a significant percentage of banana samples contain measurable levels of multiple pesticides. While these levels are often below regulatory limits, the presence of any residues demonstrates that chemicals applied during cultivation and processing do indeed make it through to the fruit consumer's purchase. One study examining bananas from several exporting countries detected residues of fungicides including thiabendazole, imazalil, and azoxystrobin, along with insecticide residues such as chlorpyrifos and bifenthrin. The detection frequencies varied by origin, with some countries showing higher rates of contamination than others. Notably, multiple residues were often found on the same banana, with some samples containing 5 or more different pesticide compounds. This cocktail of chemicals, even at individually low levels, raises questions about cumulative and interactive effects that standard risk assessments don't address. Organic bananas are often promoted as a safer alternative to conventionally grown fruit, and indeed, testing shows they typically contain far fewer pesticide residues. However, organic certification doesn't guarantee complete absence of contamination. Organic farms can be affected by pesticide drift from neighboring conventional operations, and some natural substances approved for organic agriculture can also pose health concerns if misused. Still, choosing certified organic significantly reduces exposure to synthetic pesticides, fungicides, and other industrial chemicals used in conventional banana production. Understanding the organic certification process helps consumers make informed decisions and avoid products falsely marketed as organic. True organic certification requires third-party verification by accredited organizations that inspect farms and processing facilities to ensure compliance with organic standards. These standards prohibit synthetic pesticides and fertilizers, genetically modified organisms, and ionizing radiation, among other restrictions. Certification bodies vary by country, but legitimate programs maintain strict documentation requirements and conduct regular audits. When shopping for organic bananas, look for official certification labels rather than just the word organic on signage or packaging. Recognized certification marks include the USDA Organic Seal, the European Union Organic Logo, and various national organic standards depending on your location. These seals indicate that the product has undergone verification and meets specific criteria. Be wary of vague terms like natural or eco-friendly that sound appealing but aren't regulated or verified. Without formal certification, such claims are essentially meaningless and provide no assurance about chemical use. Product codes on banana stickers can provide useful information about how the fruit was grown. These small stickers contain price lookup codes that retailers use for inventory and pricing. 4-digit codes, starting with 3 or 4, typically indicate conventionally grown fruit treated with standard agricultural chemicals. The 5-digit codes, beginning with 9, designate organic produce. 5-digit codes starting with 8 were intended for genetically modified produce, though this numbering system isn't consistently used for bananas since most commercial varieties aren't yet genetically modified. While these codes offer a quick reference, they shouldn't be the sole factor in purchasing decisions. Sticker codes are voluntary and not always accurate, particularly in smaller stores or markets with less rigorous inventory systems. Additionally, some countries don't use the same coding system, and imported fruit may have different or no codes. Still, checking stickers provides one layer of information that can guide choices, especially when combined with other indicators. Visual inspection of bananas can reveal certain signs related to chemical treatments, though many indicators aren't visible to the naked eye. Extremely uniform appearance across a bunch of bananas, with no blemishes or variations in color, might suggest heavy chemical use to achieve cosmetic perfection. Conventional banana farming prioritizes appearance because consumers tend to select the most visually appealing fruit, creating market pressure for unblemished yellow skin. This aesthetic standard drives increased pesticide use to prevent any marks or spots that might make fruit less attractive. Conversely, organic or less intensively treated bananas may show more natural variation, including small marks or color variations that don't affect the edible quality of the fruit inside. Dark spots or slightly uneven ripening don't indicate inferior bananas, but rather fruit that developed with less chemical intervention. Unfortunately, consumer preferences have trained many shoppers to reject such natural variations, reinforcing the cycle of chemical dependence in commercial agriculture. Another consideration involves the source country and growing region. Different nations have varying regulations regarding pesticide use, with some allowing chemicals that others have banned or restricted. Bananas from countries with stricter environmental and health standards may carry lower chemical residues than those from regions with less regulation or enforcement. However, determining origin isn't always straightforward since packaging may list the importer rather than the actual growing location. Washing and preparation practices at home can reduce but not eliminate chemical residues on bananas. Rinsing bananas under running water before peeling can remove some surface contamination, particularly dust, dirt, and water-soluble residues. However, this doesn't address chemicals that have penetrated the peel or systemic pesticides within the fruit tissue. Some people soak bananas in water with baking soda or vinegar, believing these solutions help remove pesticides. While these methods may have some effect on surface residues, they're not foolproof and don't reach internal contamination. Peeling bananas eliminates exposure to chemicals concentrated in or on the peel, which is where the highest residue levels typically occur. This is why bananas are often considered safer than fruits eaten with their skins, like apples or berries. However, as mentioned earlier, research shows that chemicals can migrate from peel to flesh, especially with extended storage or certain compound properties. Additionally, handling the peel and then touching the fruit flesh with contaminated fingers can transfer residues, somewhat defeating the protective purpose of the peel. For households with children, extra precautions make sense given their increased vulnerability. Opting for organic bananas when budget allows provides the most reliable reduction in synthetic pesticide exposure. Teaching children proper fruit washing and hand washing practices adds another protective layer. Cutting away any discolored areas near where the peel was removed might reduce exposure to chemicals concentrated at the surface interface, though this level of caution may seem excessive for a fruit considered generally safe. Parents of infants who consume mashed or pureed bananas face particular concerns since babies receive proportionally larger exposures relative to their tiny body weights. Babies also consume bananas frequently as a first solid food, making bananas a significant component of their total diet during crucial developmental periods. Choosing organic for this age group becomes more important given the combination of high consumption, small body size, and rapid development that increases susceptibility to chemical effects. Elderly family members benefit from similar attention to banana quality and sourcing. While they may have eaten conventionally grown bananas for decades without apparent harm, the cumulative nature of some chemical exposures means risk can increase over time. Additionally, as metabolic capacity declines with age, reducing incoming toxic burdens through dietary choices can ease the load on detoxification systems already working to process medications and manage age-related physiological changes. The economic reality is that organic bananas cost more than conventional ones, sometimes significantly so. This price difference reflects the higher production costs of organic farming, including increased labor for manual pest control, lower yields due to crop losses from pests and diseases, and certification expenses. For families on tight budgets, choosing organic consistently may not be financially realistic. This creates an unfortunate situation where those with fewer resources face greater exposure to agricultural chemicals, while wealthier consumers can more easily purchase cleaner options. That the economic divide in food safety extends beyond just organic versus conventional produce. Geographic location plays a significant role in determining what products are available and at what cost. Rural communities often have fewer grocery store options, limiting access to organic produce altogether. Small local stores may not stock organic bananas because the demand doesn't justify the shelf space, or because the faster spoilage rate of organic fruit makes it a risky inventory choice. Urban areas typically offer more variety, with multiple supermarkets, farmers markets, and specialty stores competing for customers, which can drive prices down and increase organic availability. Transportation and storage infrastructure also influences the chemical burden on imported bananas. The journey from tropical plantation to your local grocery store involves multiple stages where different treatments may be applied. After harvest, bananas are washed and often treated with fungicides to prevent crown rot, a common problem during shipping. They're packed into cartons and loaded into refrigerated containers that maintain temperatures between 53 and 56 degrees Fahrenheit to slow ripening. These containers are shipped across oceans, a journey that can take 2 to 3 weeks depending on the origin and destination. During transit, bananas remain in a state of suspended ripening. They're harvested green and hard, far from ready to eat. This extended adolescence makes them particularly vulnerable to fungal infections and decay, which is why additional chemical interventions become necessary. When the shipping containers themselves may be treated with fumigants to prevent insect infestations. Some shipping companies use controlled atmosphere technology, adjusting oxygen and carbon dioxide levels to further delay ripening without chemicals, but this technology isn't universally applied and adds to transportation costs. Once bananas arrive at their destination port, they enter ripening facilities where the ethylene gas treatment occurs. These facilities are highly controlled environments designed to bring bananas from their hard green state to the yellow fruit consumers expect. The process typically takes 4 to 7 days, with bananas exposed to ethylene concentrations between 100 and 150 parts per million. Temperature and humidity are carefully monitored to ensure even ripening throughout the batch. The workers in these facilities require proper ventilation systems and safety equipment because ethylene, while naturally occurring, can displace oxygen in enclosed spaces and create hazardous working conditions. The ripening rooms are sealed during treatment, and bananas remain inside for specific periods depending on the desired ripeness level. After treatment, the rooms are ventilated to remove excess ethylene before workers can safely enter. However, trace amounts of ethylene may remain absorbed in the fruit itself. While ethylene is considered safe for consumption and our bodies produce it naturally, the industrial concentrations used in commercial ripening are far higher than what would occur naturally. The long-term health effects of consuming fruit repeatedly exposed to these elevated ethylene levels haven't been extensively studied, leaving another gap in our understanding of imported banana safety. Beyond the ripening facilities, bananas move to distribution centers and eventually retail stores. Each step involves additional handling, more opportunities for temperature fluctuations, and potentially more chemical applications. Some retailers apply a light coating of edible wax to bananas to enhance their appearance and slow moisture loss. This wax itself may contain additives or preservatives not listed on any label because bananas are typically sold loose without ingredient declarations. The wax can trap pesticide residues against the peel, making them harder to wash off and increasing the likelihood of contamination when handling the fruit. Children face particular risks from these chemical exposures because their bodies are still developing. Their nervous systems, immune systems, and organs are more susceptible to toxic substances. Pound for pound, children consume more food than adults relative to their body weight, meaning they receive proportionally higher doses of any contaminants present. They also have less developed detoxification systems in their livers and kidneys, making it harder for their bodies to process and eliminate harmful chemicals. Additionally, children often eat with their hands, and if they touch banana peels and then put their fingers in their mouths, they can transfer pesticide residues directly. And the elderly represent another vulnerable population. As we age, our bodies become less efficient at processing toxins. Liver and kidney function naturally decline, reducing the rate at which harmful substances are filtered from the bloodstream. Older adults may also take multiple medications that interact with pesticide residues, creating unexpected health complications. Many elderly people rely on bananas as a convenient, soft food option that requires minimal chewing, making them regular consumers of this fruit. Their repeated exposure, combined with reduced detoxification capacity, creates a cumulative risk that's rarely addressed in food safety discussions. Pregnant women should exercise particular caution with conventionally grown imported bananas. Some pesticides are known endocrine disruptors, meaning they interfere with hormone function. During pregnancy, hormones guide fetal development in critical ways, and disruptions can have lasting effects on the child. Certain fungicides used on bananas have been linked to developmental problems in animal studies, though human research remains limited. The developing fetus has no ability to detoxify chemicals on its own and relies entirely on the mother's body to filter out harmful substances. Any toxins that cross the placental barrier can directly impact the growing baby. People with compromised immune systems, including those undergoing cancer treatment, living with autoimmune conditions, or taking immunosuppressant medications, should also be cautious. Their bodies are less capable of defending against the low-level toxicity that pesticide residues might create. While a healthy immune system might mitigate minor chemical exposures without noticeable effects, a weakened one may respond more dramatically, potentially causing inflammation, allergic reactions, or increased susceptibility to infections. Understanding country of origin codes can provide additional insight into the bananas you're purchasing. These codes, typically found on stickers attached to the fruit, indicate where the bananas were grown. Different countries have varying regulations regarding pesticide use, labor practices, and environmental standards. Bananas from Ecuador, for example, which is the world's largest banana exporter, may be grown under different chemical regimes than those from Guatemala, Costa Rica, or the Philippines. Some countries have banned certain pesticides that others continue to use. So knowing the origin helps you understand what regulations applied during cultivation. The codes usually consist of numbers that identify the specific plantation or packing facility. While these codes primarily serve supply chain management purposes, allowing companies to trace bananas back to their source if problems arise, consumers can use them to research the practices of particular producers. Some companies maintain better environmental and health standards than others, and this information is sometimes publicly available through corporate responsibility reports or third-party investigations by environmental organizations. Fair trade certification offers another potential indicator of safer banana production. Fair trade standards include requirements for reduced pesticide use, better worker safety, and environmental protection. While fair trade doesn't automatically mean organic, it does suggest that the plantation follows practices that consider human health and environmental impact beyond just maximizing yield. Fair trade bananas often cost more than conventional ones, but less than certified organic, offering a middle ground for consumers concerned about both safety and affordability. However, certification labels can be confusing and sometimes misleading. Various organizations offer different certifications with varying standards. Some legitimate certifications include USDA Organic, Rainforest Alliance, and Fair Trade USA. Others are created by industry groups with minimal oversight or enforcement. Learning to distinguish between meaningful certifications and marketing labels takes research, but empowers you to make truly informed decisions. Look for certifications backed by third-party verification and clear, published standards, rather than vague claims about natural or sustainable growing practices. When shopping for bananas, visual inspection provides your first line of defense. Examine the stems carefully. If you see white powder or crystalline residue at the crown where the bananas were cut from the bunch, this could indicate fungicide application. While some residue is normal and considered safe under current regulations, excessive amounts suggest heavy treatment. The stem should look relatively clean, with natural browning rather than chemical discoloration. Avoid bananas with unusual spotting patterns that look artificially uniform, as this might indicate surface treatment with preservatives. Check the color distribution across the peel. Natural ripening produces varied yellowing, with green remaining at the stem and tip initially. Bananas that appear uniformly yellow across their entire surface may have been ripened too quickly or treated with chemicals to enhance color. Look for a natural progression from green through yellow to brown spots. Those brown sugar spots that develop as bananas ripen fully are actually good signs that the fruit is maturing naturally and increasing its antioxidant content. The texture of the peel offers additional clues. Run your finger along the banana surface. It should feel smooth and slightly waxy from the natural coating the fruit produces, but not artificially slick or sticky. If your fingers feel residue, or if the banana leaves a film on your hands, it may have been treated with additional coatings. A naturally ripening banana develops a slightly rougher texture as it ages, while heavily treated ones may maintain an artificially smooth appearance for longer than natural. Smell provides another assessment tool that many shoppers overlook. Fresh bananas have a mild, sweet aroma that becomes more pronounced as they ripen. If you detect chemical odors, particularly sharp or acrid smells, this suggests recent treatment with fungicides or other preservatives. While subtle, these chemical scents differ distinctly from the natural banana fragrance. Trust your nose, as it evolved to help identify safe foods and warn against potentially harmful substances. Size and shape can also tell you something about growing conditions. Bananas grown with heavy chemical inputs often achieve larger sizes and more uniform shapes because the chemicals protect them from competition and stress that would naturally limit growth. Smaller, slightly irregular bananas might indicate more natural growing conditions with less chemical intervention, though size alone isn't a definitive indicator. Commercial breeding prioritizes uniform appearance, so even organically grown bananas may look quite similar to conventional ones. The presence of insect damage, while unappealing, actually suggests reduced pesticide use. Organic bananas sometimes show minor blemishes or small dark spots from insect activity that was managed through non-chemical methods. And these imperfections don't affect the edible fruit inside and indicate that the growing process allowed some natural pest activity rather than eliminating every potential threat through chemical bombardment. Many shoppers have been conditioned to reject any produce with visible flaws, but reconsidering this standard can help you identify fruit grown with fewer chemicals. Seasonality affects banana treatment levels less than it does for crops grown in temperate climates, since bananas are produced year-round in tropical regions. However, seasonal demand fluctuations in importing countries can influence how bananas are handled. During winter months in Northern Hemisphere countries, the increased demand for fresh fruit combined with longer transportation times may lead to heavier chemical treatments to ensure bananas survive the journey and remain marketable. Summer months might see fresher arrivals with potentially lower chemical loads, though this varies by supply chain and retailer. Building a relationship with produce managers at your local grocery store can provide valuable insider information. These workers often know which suppliers use fewer chemicals, which shipments arrived most recently, and when organic bananas will be restocked. They can sometimes special order organic options if enough customers express interest. Don't hesitate to ask questions about sourcing, handling practices, and whether the store has any information about pesticide testing results. Say, while not all managers will have detailed information, some are knowledgeable and willing to share what they know with concerned customers. Farmers markets occasionally offer bananas, particularly in areas near ports where distributors sell directly to consumers. These venues sometimes provide opportunities to speak directly with importers or distributors who can answer questions about their sourcing and handling practices. While bananas won't be locally grown unless you live in a tropical region, farmers' markets may offer access to smaller importers who prioritize quality and safety over volume and profit margins. Growing your own bananas is possible if you live in USD, A hardiness zones 9 through 11, or in protected microclimates in Zone 8. The dwarf banana varieties can even be grown in containers and brought indoors during cold months in cooler climates. Homegrown bananas allow complete control over chemical inputs, though they require significant patience as plants take 9 to 12 months to produce fruit. Most home gardeners won't achieve the yields or year-round availability of commercial operations, but even a small harvest provides chemical-free fruit and educational value about how bananas actually grow. For those without the climate or space for banana cultivation, supporting local food co-ops or buying clubs that prioritize organic and fair trade products offers an alternative. These organizations often purchase in bulk directly from distributors committed to higher safety standards, then divide products among members. The buying power of a co-op can make organic bananas more affordable while ensuring that everyone in the group has access to safer options. Participating in such organizations also builds community connections and increases collective knowledge about food sourcing. Advocacy represents another powerful tool for concerned consumers. Contact your elected representatives to express support for stronger pesticide regulations, better enforcement of existing standards, and more transparent labeling requirements. Support organizations working to improve agricultural safety standards both domestically and internationally. Consumer demand and political pressure have successfully changed food industry practices in the past, from removing artificial trans fats to improving animal welfare standards. While the same collective action can address chemical contamination in imported produce, reducing banana consumption isn't necessarily the answer, as bananas provide genuine nutritional benefits. Instead, focus on consuming them more mindfully. Treat bananas as you would any other food with potential contamination risks. Wash your hands after handling peels. Keep bananas separate from ready-to-eat foods during storage and transport. And never use banana peels in compost that will be applied to food gardens without proper aging and breakdown of chemical residues. Consider varying your fruit choices to distribute any risk across different products, rather than concentrating exposure through daily banana consumption. Apples, oranges, berries, melons, and other fruits provide different nutritional profiles and likely different chemical exposure patterns. Dietary diversity isn't just good nutrition practice, but also a risk management strategy. No single food should dominate your diet to the point where potential contaminants in that food create excessive exposure. When introducing bananas to young children, starting with organic options establishes a safer baseline during their most vulnerable developmental years. As children grow and their detoxification systems mature, you might transition to conventional bananas if budget constraints make organic purchases unsustainable. This targeted approach directs limited resources toward the highest risk periods while acknowledging practical financial realities. Meal planning can help manage costs when buying organic bananas. Purchase them when they're on sale and freeze overripe ones for later use in smoothies or baked goods. Frozen bananas lose their appealing texture for eating fresh but retain their flavor and nutritional value for blended or cooked applications. This reduces waste while ensuring you can take advantage of price reductions without letting fruit spoil. Proper storage extends banana life and may reduce chemical exposure in subtle ways. Keep bananas at room temperature until they reach desired ripeness, then refrigerate to slow further ripening. The peel will turn brown in the refrigerator, but the fruit inside remains fresh for several additional days. This extended storage time means fewer shopping trips and potentially fresher overall inventory in your home. And some sources suggest that allowing bananas to fully ripen before consuming them may reduce certain chemical residues as natural enzymes break down some compounds, though research on this specific question is limited. Understanding the understanding. The global supply chain helps explain why so many treatments get applied to bananas before they reach consumers. The journey from plantation to supermarket shelf can span thousands of miles and involve multiple intermediaries. Each step introduces opportunities for contamination or the application of additional chemicals meant to preserve appearance and prevent spoilage. Commercial banana operations operate on massive scales, with single plantations sometimes covering thousands of acres. And this industrial approach prioritizes efficiency and output over the kinds of careful handling that smaller operations might provide. Workers in banana plantations face their own health challenges from chemical exposure, often experiencing higher rates than consumers. Field workers who mix and apply pesticides may have inadequate protective equipment, especially in countries with less stringent labor regulations. Studies have documented elevated pesticide levels in the blood and urine of plantation workers, with some research linking chronic exposure to neurological problems, reproductive issues, and certain cancers. The communities surrounding large banana operations sometimes report contaminated water sources and soil as runoff from treated fields enters local ecosystems. This environmental dimension adds another layer to the health considerations around conventional banana production. Children represent a particularly vulnerable population when it comes to pesticide exposure through diet. Their smaller body sizes mean that a given amount of residue represents a higher dose per kilogram of body weight. Additionally, children's developing nervous systems and organs are more susceptible to disruption from toxic substances. Some research suggests that early childhood exposure to certain pesticides correlates with developmental delays, attention problems, and reduced cognitive performance. While bananas alone aren't responsible for these outcomes, they can contribute to the overall dietary pesticide load that a child experiences. Parents who provide bananas daily as snacks or breakfast items should consider whether organic options might reduce this cumulative exposure. Elderly individuals also face heightened vulnerability, though for different reasons. Aging bodies often process and eliminate toxins less efficiently than younger ones. Liver and kidney function naturally decline with age, meaning that chemicals that would be quickly filtered out in a younger person might circulate longer in an older adult system. Elderly people also tend to take multiple medications, creating potential interactions with pesticide residues. While specific research on banana pesticides and medication interactions is sparse, the general principle of avoiding unnecessary chemical exposures becomes more important as people age and their bodies become less resilient. Pregnant women constitute another group that should pay particular attention to pesticide exposure. Some pesticides used in conventional agriculture have been identified as potential endocrine disruptors, meaning they can interfere with hormone systems. During pregnancy, proper hormone function is critical for fetal development. Research has linked certain pesticide exposures during pregnancy to increased risks of birth defects, premature birth, and low birth weight. While the specific chemicals used on bananas haven't all been individually studied in pregnancy contexts, the precautionary principle suggests minimizing exposure when possible. Organic bananas represent one option for reducing this risk, along with thoroughly washing conventional ones and diversifying fruit intake to spread exposure across different sources. The economic dimensions of banana production help explain why so many chemicals get used. Bananas rank among the world's most traded agricultural commodities, with the global market valued at tens of billions of dollars annually. Major multinational corporations dominate this trade, operating under intense price competition. Supermarkets and consumers have come to expect unblemished, uniform bananas available year-round at low prices. Meeting these expectations requires controlling pests, diseases, and ripening with precision that only chemical interventions currently provide at commercial scales. The race to the bottom on pricing means that companies face constant pressure to maximize yields and minimize losses, encouraging reliance on synthetic inputs rather than more labor-intensive organic methods. Fair trade certifications represent one approach to addressing both labor conditions and environmental practices in banana production. Fair trade bananas must meet certain standards regarding worker treatment, wages, and chemical use. While not identical to organic certification, fair trade standards typically restrict the most toxic pesticides and require protective equipment for workers. Fair trade products usually cost more than conventional ones, but less than organic in many markets. For consumers concerned about both health and social justice dimensions, fair trade bananas offer a middle path. The premiums paid for fair trade products go back to farming cooperatives, theoretically funding improvements in safety and sustainability. Some consumers wonder whether cooking or processing bananas might reduce chemical residues. Since bananas are typically eaten raw, cooking isn't usually relevant. However, bananas do get used in smoothies, baked goods, and other preparations. Heat can break down some pesticide compounds, but it can also concentrate others as water evaporates. Blending bananas into smoothies distributes any surface residues throughout the entire drink. Baking banana bread or muffins subjects the fruit to sustained heat that may degrade some chemicals, though comprehensive data on specific compounds is limited. The peel typically gets removed before any preparation, which eliminates the primary site of residue concentration. Still, the portions of fruit immediately under the peel may retain more residues than the center, so trimming the ends might marginally reduce exposure. The question of whether to buy organic bananas often comes down to individual priorities and budgets. Organic bananas typically cost 30 to 50% more than conventional ones, a premium that not all households can afford. Families on tight budgets face difficult choices about where to allocate limited resources. Some nutritionists suggest prioritizing organic purchases for foods consumed with skins intact, while accepting conventional options for items that get peeled. By this logic, conventional bananas might be acceptable since the peel gets removed. However, as noted earlier, residues do penetrate the peel to some degree, and the environmental and worker safety dimensions remain relevant even if personal health risk is minimal, for those who can afford it. Buying organic bananas supports agricultural practices that avoid synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. Organic farming relies instead on crop rotation, composting, biological pest control, and other methods that work with natural systems. While organic operations face their own challenges and aren't entirely chemical-free, they represent a fundamentally different approach to food production. The organic certification process, despite its complexities and occasional controversies, provides reasonable assurance that certain standards have been met. Supporting organic agriculture with purchasing decisions sends market signals that encourage more farmers to transition away from conventional methods. Community-supported agriculture programs and farmers' markets offer additional avenues for accessing bananas grown with fewer chemicals. While most bananas sold in temperate climates are imported, some warmer regions do have local banana production. Hawaii, southern Florida, southern California, and parts of the Gulf Coast can grow bananas. Local bananas from small farms may not carry organic certification, but might be grown with minimal chemical inputs. Talking directly with farmers about their growing practices provides information that labels can't capture. Some small-scale growers use organic methods but haven't gone through the certification process due to its cost and complexity. Building relationships with local food producers creates opportunities to learn about specific practices and make more informed choices. Growing your own bananas represents the ultimate control over production methods, though it's only feasible in certain climates. Say banana plants can grow in USDA zones 9 and above, producing fruit in tropical and subtropical conditions. Home banana production allows complete knowledge of what touches the fruit. Gardeners can choose to use no synthetic chemicals whatsoever, relying instead on companion planting, beneficial insects, and organic soil amendments. The experience of growing food often deepens appreciation for the challenges farmers face and the complexities of producing abundant, healthy crops. Even in climates too cold for outdoor banana production, dwarf varieties can grow in large containers that move indoors during winter, though fruiting becomes less reliable. Education represents a powerful tool for changing banana production practices. As more consumers learn about the chemical treatments involved in conventional banana farming, demand for alternatives grows. This demand pressures retailers to stock organic and fair trade options and encourages producers to adopt cleaner methods. Consumer education also includes understanding how to properly store and prepare bananas to maximize safety. Sharing information within communities multiplies impact as individuals influence their social networks. Parent groups, senior centers, schools, and online platforms all serve as venues for discussing food safety and advocating for better practices. Regulatory advocacy offers another path toward cleaner banana production. Contacting elected representatives about pesticide policies, supporting organizations that work on agricultural issues, and participating in public comment periods for new regulations all contribute to systemic change. While individual purchasing choices make a difference, policy changes can shift entire industries. Stronger pesticide residue limits, better enforcement of existing standards, mandatory pesticide use reporting, and increased funding for organic farming research all represent achievable policy goals. Many advocacy organizations working on food and agriculture issues provide easy ways for concerned citizens to engage, from signing petitions to attending local hearings. The globalized nature of banana production means that improvements require international cooperation. Bananas grown in Latin America for North American and European markets reflect labor and environmental standards of producing countries, not consuming ones. International trade agreements increasingly include provisions related to labor rights and environmental protection, though enforcement remains inconsistent. Supporting trade policies that include strong protections represents another way consumers can influence conditions in banana-producing regions. Some advocacy groups focus specifically on improving conditions in global supply chains, working with companies, governments, and local organizations to raise standards. Alternative business models show that different approaches to banana production and distribution are possible. Some companies have built their brands around sustainability, transparency, and fair treatment of workers. These businesses often charge premium prices but provide detailed information about their supply chains and growing practices. Cooperatively owned banana operations, where workers have ownership stakes, create incentives for protecting both human health and environmental quality. While these alternative models represent a tiny fraction of the global banana trade, they demonstrate possibilities for how things might work differently. Supporting such businesses, when financially feasible, helps prove their viability and encourages others to adopt similar practices. Technology developments may eventually reduce reliance on toxic chemicals in banana production. Researchers are working on disease-resistant banana varieties that would require fewer fungicide applications. Biological pest control methods continue to improve, with better understanding of beneficial insects and microorganisms that can control pests without synthetic chemicals. Precision agriculture techniques allow more targeted application of necessary inputs, reducing overall volumes. Biodegradable alternatives to plastic bags for banana bunches could reduce environmental contamination. While none of these developments eliminate all concerns, they point toward possibilities for less chemical-intensive production. The nutritional benefits of bananas shouldn't be forgotten amid discussions of chemical risks. Bananas provide readily available energy, important minerals, dietary fiber, and various beneficial plant compounds. For many people, especially children and athletes, bananas serve as convenient, affordable, nutritious snacks. The goal isn't to eliminate bananas from diets, but to consume them in ways that maximize benefits while minimizing risks. This balance looks different for different individuals based on their health status, budget, access to alternatives, and personal risk tolerance. A person with limited income might reasonably choose conventional bananas for their nutritional value while taking steps to wash them carefully. A family with more resources might prioritize organic bananas as part of an overall strategy to reduce pesticide exposure. Variety in diet provides natural protection against overexposure to any single food's potential contaminants. Eating many different fruits and vegetables distributes risk while ensuring diverse nutrient intake. Someone who eats bananas daily faces higher cumulative exposure to banana-specific residues than someone who rotates through many fruits. Apples, oranges, berries, melons, grapes, pears, and countless other fruits offer their own nutritional profiles. While each has its own production practices and potential chemical exposures, rotation prevents over-reliance on any single source. This diversity strategy applies not just to fruits, but to entire diets, as varied eating patterns tend to be both more nutritious and safer than repetitive ones. Seasonal eating, while challenging with bananas available year-round, offers another dimension of dietary wisdom. When local seasonal fruits are at their peak, they often cost less and require fewer preservatives than out-of-season imports. Strawberries in summer, apples in fall, citrus in winter, and cherries in spring each have their moments of peak availability. Taking advantage of these natural rhythms reduces dependence on heavily treated imports while supporting local agriculture. Bananas might remain a staple for their convenience and consistent availability, but supplementing them with seasonal variety improves both nutrition and safety. Reading beyond labels to understand actual growing and handling practices takes effort, but provides valuable information. Some companies maintain detailed websites explaining their sourcing, testing, and quality control procedures. Others remain opaque, providing only minimum required labeling. As a general rule, companies that have invested in cleaner practices tend to communicate about it, using it as a marketing advantage. Transparency often correlates with better practices, though it's not an absolute guarantee. Conversely, companies that provide minimal information may or may not have something to hide. When possible, choosing brands that openly discuss their supply chains and testing protocols provides more assurance than selecting based purely on price or appearance. Store policies vary regarding product sourcing and quality standards. Some retailers maintain rigorous supplier requirements that go beyond regulatory minimums, including pesticide testing and limits. Others simply purchase whatever meets legal standards at the best price. Natural food stores and organic-focused retailers typically have more stringent standards than conventional supermarkets, though this varies by company. Some conventional chains have developed organic and natural food sections with elevated standards. Understanding a retailer's approach to food safety and quality helps in deciding where to shop. Store managers often respond to customer requests, so expressing interest in organic bananas or asking about sourcing can influence what gets stocked. Price promotions on bananas can indicate various things about quality and freshness. Sometimes sales mean a retailer overstocked and needs to move inventory before it overripens. Other times, promotional pricing reflects deals negotiated with suppliers based on seasonal abundance. Deeply discounted bananas nearing overripeness aren't necessarily lower quality, but should be eaten promptly. Very green bananas on sale might take a week to ripen, offering extended usable life. Understanding these patterns helps consumers take advantage of deals while avoiding waste. Quality and safety aren't necessarily compromised by lower prices, though extremely cheap bananas might come from suppliers cutting corners on labor or environmental practices. Zero-waste approaches to bananas extend beyond just eating the fruit. Banana peels can be composted, returning nutrients to soil. Some people use banana peels as natural fertilizer for gardens and houseplants, either composting them first or burying them directly. Peels can also be cooked in some cuisines, adding nutrients and fiber to dishes. The strings that come off when peeling bananas are edible and contain fiber, though many people discard them. Very ripe or spotted bananas perfect for eating can be frozen for later use in smoothies or baking. These practices reduce food waste while maximizing value from each banana purchased. Cultural attitudes toward food safety and risk vary considerably. Some cultures prioritize natural and traditional foods, viewing industrial agriculture with skepticism. Others embrace modern food technology and processing as improvements over traditional methods. Individual risk tolerance also varies, with some people prioritizing maximum safety regardless of cost or convenience, while others accept higher risks for affordability or taste preferences. Neither approach is inherently right or wrong, though understanding one's own values helps make consistent choices. Someone prioritizing maximum caution might choose organic bananas, wash them thoroughly, and limit consumption frequency. Someone with a higher risk tolerance might buy conventional bananas without worry, trusting that regulatory systems provide adequate protection. Long-term health outcomes from dietary choices unfold over decades, making it challenging to link specific foods to specific conditions. Epidemiological research suggests associations between dietary patterns and health, but struggles to isolate effects of individual foods or specific contaminants. Someone who eats conventional bananas daily for 50 years might have excellent health, while another person following identical banana practices might develop problems. Countless other factors influence health outcomes, from genetics to stress levels to overall diet quality to environmental exposures beyond food. This complexity means that while making careful food choices is prudent, it's also important to avoid excessive anxiety about any single food or practice. Personal empowerment through knowledge represents perhaps the most valuable outcome of understanding banana production and its associated risks. Informed consumers can make choices aligned with their values, circumstances, and priorities. Knowledge eliminates the helplessness that comes from eating foods without understanding where they came from or what happened to them before purchase. This empowerment extends beyond bananas to all aspects of food purchasing and preparation. Learning to read labels, ask questions, research companies, and understand agricultural practices creates lasting skills applicable throughout life. Food literacy, like any literacy, opens up new ways of engaging with the world and advocating for change. The banana industry will likely continue evolving in response to consumer demands, environmental pressures, and economic forces. Disease pressures on banana crops worldwide may force development of new varieties and growing methods. Climate change affects banana-producing regions, potentially shifting where and how bananas are grown. Trade policies and international relations influence banana markets. Technological developments in agriculture, transportation, and storage will create new possibilities and new challenges. Consumer awareness around food safety, labor conditions, and environmental impact continues growing. These various forces will shape what kinds of bananas become available and at what prices in coming years. Making informed choices about bananas represents one small part of building a healthier food system. No single consumer decision transforms an industry, but collective choices create markets that reward better practices. Someone buying organic bananas contributes fractionally to demand that supports different farming methods. Someone asking their supermarket to stock fair trade options signals interest that retailers notice. Someone sharing information about banana production with friends expands awareness that eventually influences broader patterns. These individual actions, multiplied across millions of consumers, gradually shift markets toward practices that better protect human health and environmental quality. The journey from learning about banana production to changing purchasing habits isn't always straightforward. Information can feel overwhelming, and perfect choices aren't always available or affordable. Progress often comes incrementally, with small changes building over time. Someone might start by washing bananas more carefully, then eventually transition to organic when budget allows. And perhaps later explore local alternatives or different fruits. Each step represents improvement over previous practices. Avoiding paralysis or guilt over imperfect choices keeps progress moving forward. The goal is better, not perfect. Ultimately, questions about banana safety connect to larger questions about food systems, corporate power, environmental sustainability, and global justice. The same forces that lead to pesticide-heavy banana production affect countless other agricultural commodities. The same power imbalances between multinational corporations and small farmers appear across supply chains. The same tensions between affordability and sustainability play out in market after market. Understanding bananas thus provides a window into much larger issues. Engaging with these questions, even in the limited context of breakfast and snack decisions, builds awareness and skills applicable to broader citizenship and advocacy. Each mindful food choice represents practice in living according to values and taking responsibility for impacts beyond oneself. The information provided here aims to empower rather than frighten, to illuminate rather than confuse. Bananas remain nutritious, convenient, affordable foods that play important roles in many diets. Being aware of potential chemical residues and taking reasonable precautions represents prudent health management, not alarmism. Different people will draw different conclusions about which bananas to buy and how to prepare them based on their unique circumstances. The important thing is having enough information to make those decisions consciously rather than by default. Whether that means buying organic, washing thoroughly, reducing consumption, diversifying fruit intake, or continuing current practices with slightly modified awareness, informed choice beats unconscious habit. Knowledge creates freedom to decide what matters most and to act accordingly, in the banana aisle and everywhere else.